right. Hello, and happy Tuesday. We are back. It's been a wonderful week so far, but it's still early. There's still lots of time for amazing things to happen, including this wonderful panel that we have for everyone today. And I just wanted to say thanks to all of our panelists. Is that what you would call it? The panelists, the esteemed panelists. We'll go right around. I'm Jason, I'm the community evangelist at torque.dev. I'll be the host today. And then we'll just go right around. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? We'll start with Kanika.
Hey everybody, my name is Kanika Tolver. I'm a senior product manager in the federal government space. I primarily work on ITSM right now at the moment. So I'll hand it off to Faith.
Hello, I'm Faith. I am a ServiceNow developer working with a government contracting company, and right now I'm working on portals. So that's super fun.
Look forward to hearing more about that. Go ahead, Sophie.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Sophie. I am a ServiceNow certified system administrator. I currently work as a technology solutions manager for a high-end fashion retailer supporting their enterprise level help desk. And I'm actually working on moving them to actually having an ITSM framework with their technology department and kind of help build that infrastructure for them now.
Well, I love it. Thank you and welcome. Great introductions, by the way. That was fantastic. I'm excited to get into it. I see a ton of people dropping into the chat here. I see Richard and Jeff. Jeff, who is also a ServiceNow developer. Great to see you. If anybody has any questions for the panel, please feel free to drop them in the chat, and we'll get to those at the end. But let's go ahead and get started if everybody's ready. First question, because me personally, not super experienced in ServiceNow. So I'm just kind of wondering, for myself and everybody else that might not be super familiar with it, could you explain it core functionality wise as an enterprise platform? What makes it unique in the enterprise landscape, software landscape? Anybody?
I can take this one because I have to kind of explain it in a TLDR fashion to most people. So the way that I explain ServiceNow to people is that it's an IT service management platform where it focuses on the pillars of IT service management, knowledge management, change management, request management, and incident management. And it is a platform that is used by many corporations to help their technology infrastructure. That is just what it is at its core. Because it's such a robust platform, it has many different other avenues and it's very configurable and customizable to what you need. But bare bones, out of the box, it is an IT service management solution platform. I don't know if anybody else from the panel wants to add.
Oh no, I think that was great. I'll let Faith go after me, but I like to think ServiceNow is one of those platforms where it has originally started in the ITSM space, but it has grown into this amazing platform where it can enhance business processes. It can do automation of different workflows. It can do things in the areas of IT operations, HR, finance, and so much more. And cybersecurity as well. I mean, I think that a lot of times people forget that it can do, security operations and GRC and things like that. So I really think it's one of those platforms that is super powerful. It's a lot to learn. The platform came out in 2004. They went public in 2012. And over the last couple of years, they've just taken off into doing a lot of work in various different sectors, like private sector, GovTech, FinTech. I mean, everybody's using ServiceNow in all industries to some magnitude. So Faith, did you want to add something extra?
And I just wanted to add the part about enhancing the business processes. So one of the things that I liked when I started learning it is you may have different tasks that you're doing manually over and over. So one of the biggest things when we talk about ServiceNow is automation, those workflows that work to take those repetitive tasks that you're doing that you have to do, and you're able to build workflows to automate those processes so it doesn't take away from your job, but those repetitive tasks you're then able to give that to the workflow, and then you're able to focus on other things, which is obviously about enhancing your business processes. And the other thing I like about ServiceNow is that low code part of it as well. So, or even like a delegated developer. So when you come in, you might not know how to code immediately, but you should, especially if you're going to be a developer. But they have things like Flow Designer, right? Which is going to help you to build those automations, but you don't necessarily have to know how to code right away because you can use some of their low code tools. So I like that as well.
Oh, I like low code. I'm such a proponent of like ease of project, like whatever makes your job easier to get that finished product. Wow. Yeah, that's ServiceNow sounds pretty good. I don't even know that much. I'm like, I might have to dabble with this. What version is this on? Like when was it introduced? And I guess like, what is the current version that it's operating on?
I don't remember the first original version, honestly, because I got introduced, I think, in Orlando or Paris. But we are currently in the version of Xanadu. Most organizations may be on Washington, D.C. We're on Vancouver, actually. So I don't know if you know this, Jason, but each version of ServiceNow is like a city. So they name each
Oh.
version after a city. So you have Paris, Orlando, Vancouver, Utah, and you have all these various different versions. But Xanadu is the most recent version, and it's the most powerful version that they've had that's AI focused. So they are introducing so many AI features right now using generative AI that is just mind blowing where we're going to go from here, because we thought we can only go up, but this is like setting the bar kind of high.
Oh, they're setting it high because they're going to get over it eventually. And I'm glad you brought up AI. I do have questions about it, so we'll get to it. I think everybody's got some sort of an AI workflow, and I'm excited to see how AI is getting implemented into ServiceNow, especially since you mentioned the automations too. Anything to make your work easier for you, I think, is such a huge component. So it's great that they have those features. Let's talk about the job market a little bit. As far as like the current jobs, what are some current job market trends for ServiceNow professionals? In which role are you, or did you? I mean, we're at the beginning of the end of the year at this point. What sort of roles are you seeing the demand for?
I know. So I feel like obviously one of the popular roles is always going to be a developer role. Initially, when I started about a year ago, it was the admin role. The admin role has kind of been kind of connected with the developer role. So it's kind of hard to find solely an admin role. Like admins really work on configuring different parts of the platform, and then developers build out the different applications or functionality. So they kind of merge the two. So I would say a developer is a very popular role. And then honestly, also business analysts. I find business analysts to be so important because as a developer, you clearly need to know those requirements. And as a business analyst that's skilled in ServiceNow, you're going to know what functionalities are available so that you can build those stories so then the developers can go build it. So I would say two very popular roles are business analysts and developers within ServiceNow.
Anybody else on that one? I like this this comment here. It sounds like an answer to an ISO 27 requirements or other requirements of certifications. Looks like we do have a couple ServiceNow devs in the chat, so that's cool. Great to see everybody. All right, well, let's bop over to the next one here. So as far as career, go ahead.
No,
Go ahead.
I do want to add something here.
Yeah.
Just, like full transparency, I know that when I first got my ServiceNow certification, I was kind of pigeonholed into like, I have to be a system administrator. That's the cert that I have. That's what I'm qualified to do. So in this panel, I just want people who are listening to this that the certification is step one. I personally currently now have a bunch of ServiceNow certifications, but I don't work for an organization that uses it. But the skills that I gained using the ServiceNow platform and understanding the ServiceNow platform helped me to transition into the role that I currently have. So just adding that little tip.
Oh, I love that. Great.
Yeah, I love
great
that,
input.
Sophie, because before we got on the call, I was like talking about how it's so important to have platform independent skill sets. and as much as you guys know that I love ServiceNow, I think it's important for us to know that various different workflows and various different skill sets and processes and things that we learn within this platform can be easily used in another, a product. So to add on to we go to the next question, Jason, before we go to the next question, I wanted to add on some of the like non-technical.
Oh,
roles.
absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, I'm always curious about that because obviously, and for anybody that doesn't know, I started on a self-taught coding path, but ended up in a non-coding role. So I think it's important to look at just outsiders, some of these other options that are available. So please, by all means.
oh, great. So me not being a system admin or developer, I'm going to talk about some of the roles that I think that are really amazing, the tech adjacent roles. Um, so I think in this platform, you really can create your own career. You can really, so many organizations have so many different job titles. I learned about new job titles in a Twitter space the other night where they were talking about service catalog managers, ServiceNow integration hub managers, and engineers. But some of the roles that I see on my team is software tester and quality assurance tester. That's the person that writes the test cases. They get the requirements and stories from the business analysts, and they write test cases and test acceptance criteria to test up against those requirements. I'm project manager / product manager. I started off as a project manager, and then I got promoted to a product manager. Every software delivery team needs someone to lead and guide them to the finish line. So I think that's a very important thing to think about if you want to kind of come over into this ecosystem to lead and develop and to lead teams. You have ServiceNow consultants who all they do is just consult about their knowledge of a specific module, right? They don't necessarily code, they don't necessarily do administrative work all the time, but they're giving people advice. They're leading teams with the right technology solutions and helping teams be successful because they have a very niche consulting knowledge of maybe SecOps or GRC or some of the more complex modules like HRSD. So you may see somebody say that I'm a ServiceNow consultant. I consult and I help organizations be successful. So those are a few other roles that we didn't touch upon, but I've seen so many other roles that you can create your own role if you become a fan of some of the products that you are passionate about. And I think that's what's the most important thing about this ecosystem, that you can create your own job title off of something that just drives you every day to wake up and want to build in this platform.
Well said. I love that. There's there's so many job titles now. I feel like someone does need to make some sort of a list, but what would be the point? Because they change every day and there's more added every day. So that was crazy. All right. Well, I mean, speaking again of the titles, like as far as like career paths and certifications, like what would you recommend for someone looking to start or progress their careers in relation to ServiceNow?
I could go. So I think the first step is going to be the job that you want. That's going to really determine the certifications and the path that you should take. So if you want to be a developer or really just having that fundamental knowledge of ServiceNow, you're going to need that CSA exam certification. That's going to give you just kind of a little touch of all of the parts of ServiceNow. So that's why I say, like, if you're a business analyst or anything, you have the foundation. So the CSA exam, the certified system admin exam, is going to be one that everyone's going to need just to get the foundation. Now, after that, that's why I said the job requirements, looking at what's required is going to be important. So for a ServiceNow developer, I knew I needed to go and get the CAD, the Certified Application Developer exam. I needed to take that to get that cert. And then from there, I might look to see what else is important. So I saw some jobs like portals. They liked UI builder, things like that. You can get your micro certs. If you're going to be a business analyst, actually ServiceNow, if you go on their website, have the whole pathways for you, and it will lay out the different certs and micro certs that you can take. So what I would say is it depends on your career that you want. Go on the website, look at the job rec, and then go from there to see, after you get that CSA, what do you need to do next?
I love that. That was such a great response. I do want to follow up about the certifications and like how important those are as far as like that area, because I know that that's been a conversation people have had a lot across software development in general. But Sophie or Kanika, did you want to add onto what Faith said?
No,
So
she hit the. Oh,
no, go
well, I was gonna say she hit the nail on the head. The only thing that I would add would be like with the ServiceNow career paths, they actually have it broken down into tiers, right? There's beginner, practitioner, and then advanced. So as you're going through these learning paths, it's not just stopping you at the fundamental knowledge. The Jeff just put the link in the chat for now learning that ServiceNow. Thank you. And if
Absolutely.
you go there, you can go and see set yourself up to operate at a higher level in whatever chosen field or whatever chosen pathway you want to follow.
No, I agree with Faith and Sophie. I think you guys know alignment is the assignment, right? And we're not getting certain, we're not cert chasing. We're career focused on building a career that's in alignment with where we're trying to go. So I think Sophie and Faith did talk a lot about, making sure you have a strategy in place, making sure you know what level you want to have your core competencies at. I'm going to challenge that there are certifications that you could use that are non-ServiceNow. And I want to talk a little bit about maybe getting the PMP certification or getting the Scrum Master certification and understanding the agile methodology and the Scrum framework, depending on what role you're trying to go after. Because I've seen job descriptions where they're looking for product managers and project managers and business analysts, and it is not required to have a lot of ServiceNow certifications. It is required for you to have an understanding of the platform, but you need to understand, how are we going to build products? How are we going to build shippable and quality-driven products that are going to lead to user adoption, that are going to be able to be tested correctly and deployed correctly? And I think sometimes we get caught up into being a developer or being an administrator, and we are like losing the fundamentals of that. People are hiring us to build products for a set of users. And sometimes we need to get back to the fundamentals and understand, how do we lead projects? How do we develop really good quality driven requirements? How do we build a strong testing framework? Because the reason why products suck is because testing and the requirements suck. So that means that the requirements gathering wasn't done correctly, and the testing life cycle wasn't executed up against good quality driven requirements. So I want us to get back to the understanding that software development at its core requires some non-platform specific certifications or skill sets in order for us to be successful.
Ooh, you guys
I don't
are
know if I'm preaching on a Tuesday at 1:23 p.m. Eastern
Service
time.
service is happening right now. Holy cow, you guys are all swinging for the sound bites, and I love it because you guys are all just dropping so much knowledge right now. And again, thank you for being here. This has been so good so far. We're getting tons of comments in the comment section, and thank you, Jeff, for adding the links too. If anybody's interested, Jeff did drop the links that Sophie was referencing into the chat. Yeah, wow. I mean, back to the just certs in general, or just non-related, like how important are those for a ServiceNow developer to obtain to get a role? Because again, where I'm coming from as far as like the software side, experience and projects sometimes can outweigh a certification. So how do you leverage one or the other, and how does it affect this specific area of the industry? Sorry, that wasn't on the questions. This is a wild card.
I'll allow Faith to answer that, or Sophie to answer that, because I don't have the ServiceNow certified application developer certification. I'm not a developer, but I would love to hear their perspectives.
Let's go. Go ahead, Faith.
I was actually just talking about this with someone, just certs in general. So sometimes people just want to take the cert just really quickly, practice, and pass it, right? And then they still say, well, I can't find a job. What you said is important. You have to build. So like when I'm preparing for a certification, which is important, that's kind of like, it's not the key, but it kind of gets you like to the starting line. The way that you actually get to the finish line is you have to build. You have to show that you actually you know more than just the textbook knowledge, because that's really what the test is really like the textbook knowledge. But you have to be able to apply it. So, for example, I just took the HRSD exam yesterday and I passed it. That's like a implementer kind of thing. And so if I was going to go on an interview, just passing that would not be enough. So what you have to do is build. I'm in my PDI. That's one thing I love about ServiceNow, that personal developer instance. It really mimics the actual environment that you'll use on the job. And I'm building out different implementations for HR services and products. So that way, once I pass the exam, then I also can speak to the experience that I have building in my PDI so that I can show that I'm ready for the job. Just passing the cert, it's not enough. Not anymore. It's too competitive now. You have to show that you actually know how to build, post what you're building on LinkedIn so people can see what you're building, and then just explain it further in the interview to land the job.
Oh yeah, I love that. And I mean, I agree totally. You have to be able to prove you know it. You have to be able to build it and explain it, talk about it, and show that you have the knowledge. Like that piece of paper is irrelevant otherwise at the end of the day. Sophie, did you have anything to add to that?
Quick thing, just this is like specific to people who are going through the Next Gen program. Next Gen is a program that ServiceNow offers for people to help diversify the ServiceNow workforce. If you're going through a Next Gen program, your final project is a project, right? You can use that to build in public. You can use that to fail forward. You can use that to propel forward, because at the end of the day, when you're in front of these people, you need to be able to show them better than you can tell them, right? Because employers are getting smarter. There are a lot more people who are familiar with the ServiceNow platform, and real recognize real. So if you're going there and you're just quoting things from the book, and if they ask you a further question that you should know, given what you're saying your experience is, and you're unable to answer it, now you have put yourself 5 steps backwards instead of taking the time to really understand the platform and apply the knowledge that you gained from the certification.
Oh, you are all on point today. Oh, I love
Tell them,
that.
Sophie.
Boom. Um, and I love the point that you just made too, because these are just sort of like blanket things that really for any industry, for anything that you're trying to do. And I always like to just take a step back and look at some of these values like that all of you are bringing up. Like at the end of the day, you have to be able to do the work you can say you can do. Um, which just goes back to like the whole learning process. It's like you want to learn the best practices, do it the right way, and actually learn it, not just say you did. So I love that you brought that up, and I like to talk about those components that are life lessons, not just a ServiceNow or software lesson too. So excellent points. How has ServiceNow evolved from an ITSM tool to a comprehensive enterprise platform? And I think this kind of goes back to what we were talking about in the earlier versions too. What key capabilities should, or do you see in the orgs or the way you're implementing it now? What are they leveraging as far as like specific features?
I can take this, and someone else can add on to this as well. ITSM is like one of the most popular modules within the platform, and I think that that's where they got their start from in IT service management. But what I'm seeing is that a lot of organizations want to go above and beyond that, and they want to add on to um, their platform by leveraging other specific modules that will enhance what's already there from IT service management. So I'll use an example where they're implementing, utilizing the virtual agent to still be a part of reducing the resolution time with ITSM tickets to help people be able to solve their issues on their own by using a chat bot. So when I say, I may have an issue with accessing a system, I can actually go through the virtual agent or virtual assistant and put in information or a topic, and I can get information back in that chat conversation that can help me resolve my issue. Then that means the live agents are not swamped with a bunch of tickets and a bunch of emails and phone calls. So I'm seeing the use of natural language understanding and generative AI to help end users be able to solve their own issues at a faster pace and not having to depend on a human being to help them solve their issues. So that's something that I'm seeing organizations want to adopt, and they're kind of adding that on to the ITSM piece. But some of my other projects that I've worked on have been, leveraging and utilizing the SecOps module, which is security incident management. Like, how do we manage security incidents within our systems to make sure that our systems there's no threats or there's no vulnerabilities that are harming the infrastructure of our systems. That's more on the cyber side, right? And a lot of times people don't know that ServiceNow does offer a lot of cybersecurity products and features to help organizations to be able to safeguard their systems and applications. So those are just a few things that I've seen. But I'll let some of Faith or Sophie to add on. I know there's a lot of other modules that they may have worked on that I haven't been exposed to. So
I would say everything that Kanika says times two. In my personal experience, what I have been noticing is that a lot of the organizations and a lot of the interviews that I went on before I got my role, they were talking about AI and virtual chat agents and what have you. And then when I started to do a deeper dive, I noticed that what they were missing was a good foundational knowledge base, right? Because AI needs to pull from good articles, well-written articles. And so what I'm seeing now is, as a lot of companies are moving towards trying to take advantage of these AI advancements that we're making, is forcing them to take a deeper look at their knowledge base articles, and to have the conversations about building an employee center or building that centralized location for the end users to come and be able to kind of do a lot more self-service. So ServiceNow, we can sit here and talk for 7 hours about all the different things that ServiceNow can do, but just the first two things that have really been standing out to me has been like, when people are trying to move to AI, they need to have the conversation about their knowledge base.
And I also want to highlight what they both said, that self-service. I think that's really important as well. Being able to let like the end users be able to like solve problems on their own, and then also as an employee be able to access what you need without necessarily having to go to different departments and get that help, really, because all of that is just going to increase the efficiency. And also Sophie said about that central location. I found that is also something that's really important. Even like I said, in my recent studies with HRSD, with like all of the different HR applications that are out there just in the world. And the point of HRSD is to get it all in one central place, right? And so that helps because it helps to move things forward a lot easier versus you call HR and they say, no, call this other department. And call this other department. Now it's all in one place, which is going to help move the process along. So self-service and efficiency in one central location. Yes.
I really enjoy tools or platforms like this that are trying to make the work easier by implementing these things. And it seems like ServiceNow has really evolved into like iterating their versions to do these things, and incorporating other modules like that is really smart.
One thing that I wanted to touch on, Jason, that we didn't touch on. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
You are great. Go for it. This is you guys are the panel. Please, by all means.
I can talk about ServiceNow all day, right? One thing that I really love, and I don't know if Faith and Sophie enjoy it. I love the integration hub of how ServiceNow has this capability of being able to integrate with third-party tools that are not ServiceNow. So we can integrate with Splunk, Microsoft, other professional cybersecurity applications and products, other third-party APIs. The connector and that ServiceNow store, some of these actual plugins and integrations are free, and some of them actually cost. But it's like being in an app store on your phone and being able to download things that you need to do. You may develop an application using a ServiceNow module, but it needs to connect with other data that needs to flow in and out of ServiceNow. And organizations don't have to worry about whether that's not compatible with Splunk or Microsoft Teams. It makes everything easier, right? You don't have to have a custom app over here doing this and a custom app over here doing that. I can connect the two, and we can seamlessly work together.
Yeah, that's a huge feature right there. I just dropped a link in here from the ServiceNow community talking about the third-party application integration here. That's awesome. Is there, I mean, I guess in the three of you's experience with ServiceNow in regards to this third-party integration, is there anything that you want it to be able to integrate with? Like, are there some tools or limitations that the product doesn't have that have been maybe some, as that actually works into my next question too, as far as like common pitfalls that maybe you've seen working at orgs when talking about ServiceNow as a platform? And don't say anything that'll sound bite that you would regret.
I mean, I guess I haven't quite seen anything yet. Like I said, I guess it's not a pitfall. I haven't seen it yet. I'm sure there is probably some limitation somewhere, but like I said, the biggest thing that we use is like the Microsoft Teams one, which is really cool. So I guess I don't quite have the answer for that one yet.
I think my personal experience with like pitfalls with companies and organizations that are trying to expand their ServiceNow platforms is it's a new shiny thing. And I think sometimes a lot of companies and a lot of organizations hear buzzwords and hear this new shiny thing and then believe they need to spend all this money for a new module, as opposed to having a conversation with like their developers, their business analysts, or even their customer success manager to figure out, is the solution that they're looking for, can we configure it with your current instance? So I think sometimes some of the pitfalls is thinking that what you have now isn't enough and always looking to add more and add the more shiny thing. And then that is a whole nother cycle of user adoption that you have to work through. So that would be like the biggest pitfall that I've seen in terms of expanding a company's ServiceNow offerings.
And I would say not related to integrations, but another thing that I've seen is the customization versus configuration, which is what Sophie was just getting to. It's like, okay, well, go ahead and make this feature and then go ahead and code it. Especially if you've come from a software engineering background, that might be your first thing. Oh, we can code this in 5 minutes and we'll be good. Go ahead and go. When that could have been done with a flow, right? Because that's a low-code thing. A trigger, you have your action, there's our solution. No, they want to code it, right? So that is something that I've seen can happen, especially like I said, if you're coming from like a coding background and you know you can code that in 5 minutes, but you're not leveraging the tools that ServiceNow has, like I said, a configuration. If you're doing a configuration, you're using the tools that ServiceNow provided for a solution. Customization is when you have to start coding out and doing custom things that you might not have to do because you're paying this money. So, you should use the tools that are available. And sometimes it can be easier, especially if you don't necessarily know how to code. Sometimes, like I said, flows are great. Flows are great ways to provide solutions. So that's what I would say.
I love that so much. Sorry.
No, don't stop apologizing.
I just
You do it. Go
got
for
a
it.
lot to say about this question.
No, I know. I love it. And that's what we want.
Everything that they said was amazing because I agree with both of them so much. It's called low code for a reason, and there's so many out of the box features. And I have seen organizations that want to take a legacy app, bring it into ServiceNow. They wanted to operate it the same way that it was operated in the legacy platform, and they want you to customize it and make it just do the same thing it did in the whatever it was doing in the last app. It wasn't good, so it's like that inherits a lot of technical debt when you start to like bring old furniture into a new house and you don't remodel and you don't say, how can we save space, how can we reduce costs, how can we make this easier for the end users to adopt and to have 1 or 2 clicks to do X, Y, and Z. So I think it's very important that when we are working with our end users, we need to be more solution driven and to explain to them why that this works better according to the ServiceNow way, and help them see that sometimes we just say yes, and then we know that this operation and maintenance is going to be a nightmare 3 years from now. Every time we upgrade to a new version of ServiceNow, we have to wonder if this application will break. You know what I mean? So that scares me. It gives me anxiety, right? As a product manager, that we're making decisions and we're not being truthful and honest with our customers and letting them know that this may down the line be an issue. And the last thing that I see is people don't clean up their data from an old system. So when you have to migrate data into ServiceNow, we need to be very intentional about having a very good data migration strategy on how we're bringing data from an old system into the platform, because it's a nightmare when that data comes in there bad and it's not tested and not vetted and there's no governance. So that's one of the issues that I see as a big pitfall, is that we may be bringing this from SharePoint into ServiceNow or from somewhere else, but the data's been thrown in there and it's like garbage in, garbage out. Like that's what's going to happen when you have to like stand up these apps. And that's just kind of like traditional like software development best practices, right? Like you got to have good data in order to have a good application.
You just said the magic words right there, best practices, and everything that the three of you have been just kind of referencing made me think of that. And I wanted to ask all three of you, what are some of the best practices as far as fundamentally to using ServiceNow? And I think, Kanika, you touched on it earlier as far as like how you would build the product and thinking about the testing and stuff like that. So maybe what are some other like tips or pointers in regards to that as far as best practices with use of the product?
First things first, get a PDI, right? Like if you're in the stage where you're not already working in ServiceNow, you don't already have a certification, get you a PDI. What you can do in a PDI is a controlled environment. You control the data, you control what comes in, you control what comes out, because when you're in the real world, you won't be able to control that as much, right? There are going to be some outside factors. So if you are looking to set up your own best practices and get a deep understanding of the ServiceNow platform, get a PDI. And if you break the PDI, you get 5 of them. Reset it, start from fresh, see what you did wrong. And it might even make you learn how to successfully do an update set instead of just reading the module 7 times and not getting it. So I just say for best practices, it depends on what role you're going into, what field you're going into, what you want to come out, what you want your finish line to look like, but your starting point should be a PDI.
I also would say organization, I think, is important, especially when Kanika was talking about like when you're migrating, especially from like legacy apps, and then you're trying to update them and bring them into ServiceNow and change them. One thing that I love about like our architects, I also say get a knowledgeable architect, because our architect, she's amazing. Like she touches on technical debt. She's like, is this the optimal way to build this? I think that's important. So first I would say get a knowledgeable architect for your company. But then beyond that, I think for the individual employee, organization is important. Just because things were done a certain way before doesn't mean that that is the best way to move forward. Even something simple as like naming conventions for like an update set. If you call an update set 1, and the update set, for people that might not know, is how you can migrate changes between your instances. If you just call this update set 1 and you don't detail what's in it, that can be a nightmare when you have all those update sets in a new place. You don't know what's in it. So that's why I say organization from the beginning is important. And that's why I said it's something as small as naming conventions, traditional conventional naming your update sets for your entire team. So that way, if anything does go wrong, you know, oh, this is what the update set was, and this is what was included in it. So organization from the beginning, before you start making any changes, and communicating with your team is important as well.
Yeah, that's good. Sophie and Faith, they dropping major gems, man. You got an all-star team here, Jason, tonight. I mean, this afternoon. It's not nighttime, but
It's almost, it feels like it is.
So
I
early,
mean,
so I don't know. Sometimes night from day in the fall. But
it's going to be dark in an hour. I mean, let's just be honest. If I saw something yesterday, I think it was TikTok. The guy like fell asleep at 1 PM, but then he woke up and it's all dark. He's like, "Oh, what time is it?" He's thinking it's late. It's like it's 3:30. His buddy's like, it's 3:30 in the afternoon. So I get it. Wow, all of you, so many gems. Thank you again, and thank you to the chat that's hanging out here with us too. Let's Speaking of buzzwords, I think we all knew some AI conversation was going to come. So why don't we dip into that a little bit toward the end here? And I'm curious because uh, as far as some of your experience, you've been in ServiceNow or around it before the AI implementations. So how has it changed ServiceNow, and what sort of opportunities is it creating for professionals? And are they doing it the right way? Are you seeing it the right way? Because again, you do see a lot of bad AI implementation.
I think that remember, I guess you guys like a year ago, people were talking about that AI was going to replace, developers' jobs, and people got so scared and so upset and so, everyone had their feathers were a little, ruffled a little bit. I wanna believe that they are doing it correctly, because I want to say that um and I'm gonna give Faith and Sophie an opportunity to talk about from their perspective. Organizations, they want to build things faster, and they want to build things at a scalable rate, and I think that that's what we're missing when we talk about AI. We're thinking about potential ways to like replace people, but we also have to think about how people are going to be able to build products and shippable products at a faster rate. So like comment to code, text to code, I think that's still not going to mean that developers are not going to code. I think that that's misunderstood a little bit. I think that people need to understand that it's already a low code platform by default. So people are not spending countless of hours coding anyway now today. It's just that they're going to do things at a faster pace. I think with the Now Assist products and the generative AI assistants with various different products that they have, I think that this is going to really be a great enhancement for people to take those modules to the next level. People are going to be able to create incidents faster, work notes faster. We'll be able to pull information and data to make more common sense decisions based upon the information that we're going to be able to find utilizing AI search. I think it's just going to help us work faster and smarter, and we'll have data to support business decision making. I am not a fan of saying that everything has to be an AI solution at this point. I think that there's a big percentage of the products that are there that are non-AI, they still work. So if you have a bad workflow and it's not AI, it's going to be a bad workflow using AI. So let's get back down to the basics, and let's make sure that what we're doing makes sense for the solution that we're trying to build. And we don't have to put AI into the mix all the time. It doesn't need to be there for everything. So I want to just give Sophie and Faith an opportunity to speak on the AI changes.
Mine will be quick because I actually stopped my organization from moving to an AI solution. I had a conversation with them and I was just forthright. I said, to pull no punches, what we have now, if we started AI, it would be pulling from just a hodgepodge of information, right? We don't have the business architecture set up in a way that if we were to bring AI onto this organization, it would do more good than harm. So like I said, it's a buzzword, so they wanted to move over to that platform. So I can't really speak much to it because I straight up said, put a kibosh to it. So I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to Faith if you have anything else to add.
No, I love I think that's so important, because again, the whole goal is to make our jobs easier, is to make the companies function optimally. And if it's not something that needs to be used right now, then you don't have to use it. I know different decisions with different companies that I've talked to. Sometimes they say, we're not going to use this right now because the projects that we have don't require it. And I think that's important to understand the needs of your company and how your company operates to know, do I need this or do I not need this? I know I heard from one company that had just implemented like they just implemented the HR suite. And they were saying how AI was helpful when you have a lot of customers that come to get help from their different agents. and they're able to talk with virtual agent and get help to some of those low level questions that can be answered using AI, right? How do I reset my, my password, right? That could be something that you just need step 1, step 2, step 3, right? Generative AI can help you out with that. That doesn't have to be an agent who has to, stop helping someone else, to help you with that. So Gen AI for certain tasks like that helps to resolve those kind of low level inquiries. And it's also great for documentation. I love that as well. I was reading that when I was studying, that it can like attach different knowledge articles to help you to resolve the different issues that you may have when you're dealing with different cases. And so I imagine that would be so helpful. I know if I was working in a situation like that where I had to answer a lot of questions that could be fielded or needed additional information, that is so helpful to be able to just attach that knowledge article that was suggested to me with the Gen AI. So that way I'm moving the process forward. So I think it can be helpful, but I also think like Sophie did with her company, if it's not needed, don't force it. So yeah, I love that.
I think it's really important to look pragmatically at these options as opposed to, again, just attaching that buzzword. You see it across, all industries at this point. Why does my refrigerator need to talk to me? Like just stop. But looking at it in relation to what we're referring to, I wish more people would speak up and look at it pragmatically, like Sophie's referencing, because I think Jeff dropped it into the chat too. Just cost alone, sometimes the efficiency of actually shipping a viable product can be affected pretty detrimentally by implementing these things into a workflow or trying to figure out how to do it. So great points from everybody. We did have a question that dropped in here from Twitter, and I wanted to just touch on that real quick before we get to these last couple. What are some good resources to learn Glide script? I looked over on the ServiceNow website as far as that, but I wanted to see if anybody has any experience with that might be able to give some feedback to the question.
I think the Glide script, I think, is a developer framework inside of ServiceNow. But like, look, and that ain't my ministry. So
if she's referring to like just like the Glide API and scripting, like within ServiceNow, if that's kind of what we're getting to, I hope that's what that means. But if that is, I would say there's a scripting course on Now Learning that walks you through it. Honestly, Now Learning is so amazing. There are free courses on Now Learning. Some are paid. If you went through the Next Gen program, you have access to all of those courses for a year. But if you wanted to learn that and you had access to Now Learning, I would say do the scripting course on Now Learning. Also on YouTube, the developer channel, I think it's like the Developer Advocates channel, they help walk you through some of those popular scripting APIs that you may use. So I would definitely say use Now Learning for the scripting course on there. I would also say use the YouTube channel, which is also great at walking you through the different processes that you can need for scripting in ServiceNow.
Can I also add to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Sophie.
Join a community, right? Join a community, a ServiceNow. ServiceNow is one of the most welcoming tech communities that I've ever been a part of. There's a Discord for what you're looking for somewhere, right? There's other people who are at the same level or maybe not too far ahead of you who are having the same exact questions that you're having. And that's a safe place for you guys to kind of grow and learn together. So on top of the resources that Faith shared, community and networking is super important. So I would recommend joining a Discord community, maybe even an X community. I know that I'm part of Callie's ServiceNow portfolio development group in Discord, and resources and mentors are available through that. So I definitely would recommend, on top of the resources on your own, joining a community so you don't feel as if you're existing in this echo chamber of not knowing.
And I'll also add on, do not be afraid of AI. Like there's a lot of different ones, whichever is your AI of choice. I would not solely rely on that because you want to use like the official docs, but it's also helpful to type in, give me a use case to build a business rule, a simple business rule, and maybe walk me through how to start building this using some of those. And if it's server side, some of those popular Glide APIs. And so then, whatever AI you choose, it'll, give you a prompt. You can try it in your PDI. Again, build. That's how you learn. And then if you can't get it, you go back to the AI. Hey, try that again. Help me out. Help your girl out. Right. And it'll, help you to just build your learning even quicker while joining a community and also using the YouTube channel and also the scripting course in Now Learning.
I want to say that those are great resources that both Faith and Sophie shared, because a lot of people are not tapping into community and networking, and they're trying to do this journey alone. And I want to caution you that it's a big world out there in this ecosystem, and you can get lost in the sauce real easy if you do not pair up with other people. But let's get back to the basics of learning HTML and JavaScript first. We're trying to jump to scripting languages, and we haven't mastered, HTML. And there's so many things that we can do with documentation. The ServiceNow document, one thing about ServiceNow, they document everything. It's top tier. If you are not using the ServiceNow doc, I say it's the ServiceNow Bible. Like, if you're not using that and you're not finding what you need from that, then go to YouTube or go to the Now Learning platform. Some people like to read, some people like to watch, some people like to build. You need to probably collectively do all three, you know what I mean? But I think it's important for us to, when I'm at the job and I get stuck with the solution, that ServiceNow documentation bails me out. And reading the release notes, knowing what works in this new version, knowing what could potentially not be compatible with your old version, being intentional about doing analysis and reading is going to take you very far in this ecosystem, because you're going to get requests from users that are like, sometimes you got to go back. Sometimes I don't know what the answer is, but I have to go back and read the documentation or watch a YouTube video to come up with a scenario of options for a customer.
I think you made a really great point there, that you don't know everything, but you know how to find it. You understand the process enough to be able to say, like, you know what, here's the documentation. I know where I have the resources in place to find the information that I need and do it the best way. So instead of, as some people just fumble along or pretend to know it. So yeah, dropping in, thank you. Per usual, the advice is top tier. That is awesome. I'm glad we were able to answer that question for you. I think I've only got one last question, and then we can wrap up. Thank you again for everybody for hanging out with the four of us. And finally, looking ahead, how do you see AI and automation within ServiceNow impacting the role of the ServiceNow administrators and developers? I mean, we kind of already touched on that, but I guess let's just make it a blanket question: is how do you see ServiceNow evolving over the next year going into 2025?
I would say I think that it's only going to help. So I was able to go to Knowledge this year. That was my first time ever going to Knowledge. I was blown away. And just seeing how they plan to implement a lot of the Gen AI, I think that is going to help. I know that a lot of people are afraid of it, but you still need people who are knowledgeable to be able to use it. So for example, one of the things that I'm excited about is like the code generation, right? So you can type in, it was mentioned before about the natural language. You can type in and say, okay, I need help building some type of code, right? You can type that in and then it will generate the code. It also be like a different color so you can know like what's your code versus what was generated. Here's the thing. Sometimes it's not right? Sometimes it just puts out what is like, okay, that's what I got from there. And then you still have to use your knowledge to say, oh, wait, I just needed to add this one part. It kind of helps, as a developer, some days you're just researching. You're like, okay, you're in the docs, you're looking it up. Even at my senior dev, he's looking things up. You know what I mean? I'm looking things up. That's going to sometimes help to cut down on that amount of research time. Even if the Gen AI doesn't give me the right code, even if it doesn't work right away, that might be that one connecting piece. I go, oh, I could have just, and so that's only going to help our jobs move forward. So as developers, I think that's going to help us. It's not going to cancel us out because it's not perfect. It's still, generative AI. but it can help us to cut down sometimes on the amount of research that we put into making our code work. That's my whole day, just trying to make code work. So I think that'll be helpful moving forward. I know that was one of the big things I was excited about when I went to Knowledge to hear about with Gen AI.
I have nothing to add. She hit the nail on the head. I completely agree with all the points that you said, that it, if used properly and used appropriately, this is going to be something that we're going to look back and be like, wow, I was actually nervous about this. This scared me. But I think at the end of the day, I don't think that it's going to like impact and, take away system administrator or developer jobs or developer roles, because our end user is a human being, right? And when it comes time to build things out and have these conversations, there are still limitations, even though we have these natural language learning models, right? There are still limitations there. It might not even understand how things are expressed differently within the regions. And I feel as if like it's easy to fearmonger, especially given, if you grew up watching things like iRobot and things of that nature. It's very easy to fearmonger and lead people to believe that there's going to be no roles for you left because this computer is going to be able to answer all the questions. But I stand 10 toes on what you know, because you know what you know. You know who you are, you know your skills, and you know what you bring to an organization. So if you know that, there can be a million robots standing next to you, but you're going to be the one that stands out because you are meant to stand out, because you know what you're doing and you are that person.
Oh man, that's a good soundbite. Stand 10 toes down. I love that. I want to add just one thing that we didn't touch on, is that the foundation and the core of the ServiceNow platform is the configuration management database, the CMDB. And if we don't really get back to making sure that the CMDB is set up correctly, all the other applications and modules that you put into place into this, and even when you add A on top of it, it's not going to work efficiently. So we have to just make sure that we get back and keep the best practices and the basics, that strong systems is built on good quality data, hands down. So like if we're building systems and we're not keeping that into effect of like how we're going to put in assets, how we're going to put in software asset management, how we're going to put in all of these things and migrate systems into a platform, AI wouldn't be able to save us. It still would need to be modified. And we need to think that AI is not just completely for the developers and the administrators. It's for the end user to be able to do their part efficiently. We're so focused on like what is it's going to replace people's jobs, but we never talked about how is it going to help customers and end users be able to do a task that they want to do better and faster.
There's another one. Another one. All the sound bites. Another one. Wow. This I have learned so much today. But at the end of the day, I think all of you you all shared similar messages about best practices, getting back to basics, understanding the fundamentals, and again, these are just life lessons, right? Doing all these things is going to put you in the best position to succeed. And community is super important. And I love that you all mentioned that as well. And we actually have a pretty decent ServiceNow community in our Discord. Feel free to join that at any point. There's my plug. Shout out to that. We've got some great developers and they're constantly talking about it. It can help you get pointed in the right directions. I'm dropping everybody's socials into the comments here. Please feel free to connect and thank. And again, this is how you build networking. This is how you build community, is reaching out. Tell everybody something that you heard today. Share it with them and tell them how much you appreciated it. I appreciate the three of these wonderful women in their time today. And thank you for spending it with me. Did you have any closing thoughts? So go around, give a closing thought, a plug to something you're working on, and then I'll get you out of here because I'm sure you're way busier than me today.
No, I think this is a great experience. I love talking about ServiceNow. I started ServiceNow with the Next Gen program. I think that's a great program that probably will start taking applications again at the top of the year. I think my biggest thing is I always want to give people access to ServiceNow. I think it's such a powerful platform, especially even for career changers. It's hard to transfer from an old job into a new one. I came from teaching. So I think ServiceNow is great. Obviously, if you can't tell, I love talking about it. And I definitely want to highlight building community. I think that's so important. It's hard to know what you don't know. And you can grow at such a faster rate if you connect with other like-minded people that also love ServiceNow. And then you're just excited to like get on a call and build in your PDI. So if you haven't already, join a community. All of us are big on like X or Twitter, I'm sorry, whatever it's called. Just, connect with us, reach out to us. We're always here to, answer questions. That's how we kind of met each other. So please, if you haven't done so, please connect. ServiceNow is a great community to lock in and come join us.
His mama called him Twitter, so I'm gonna call him Twitter. Just a quick closing for me is community is so important. Community is so important, and we talk about Kanika has touched on like having the foundations and understanding like the basis for where your jumping off point is. And I wouldn't know anything about ServiceNow. I wouldn't know anything about the Next Gen program if I wasn't following like-minded people. If I didn't, if I wasn't purposeful with what I was taking in, right, and the people I was communicating with. So community is super important. And I said this earlier, don't be afraid to fail forward. Do not be afraid to put yourself out there, try to build something and fail at it, because it's only a L if you don't learn anything. So if you learn something from it, it's no longer an L. So that's it.
I see Kanika up there. She's like, that was one. That was another one. Another one.
I
She's
feel like DJ Khaled.
another one.
Another one.
Oh my! And there's too many. There's just too many.
Another one.
I may have to clip this whole thing. Each one of you.
Yeah,
It's
man.
been
You
amazing.
picked the right young ladies to come up here. When you asked me to do this panel, I said I can only think of two people, Sophie and Faith, and I think that they brought very great different perspectives to this conversation. My last advice, because I don't want to repeat anything that Faith and Sophie said, but during this particular time right now, I just want to encourage people to turn their anxiety into accomplishments. I want you to turn your anxiety into accomplishments, and that anxious energy that you spend in time with wondering whether you're going to transition into the ecosystem, whether you're going to get a job, make sure that you're spending that time accomplishing, passing your certifications, building something, joining community, networking, because it's so easy right now to get your mind wrapped around all the things that may go wrong. And my mom would always tell me, probably on the other side of fear is some level of success, but you'll never know if you stay in the fear, So we have to really focus in on dominating depression, turning our anxiety into accomplishments, and reversing our stress into success. Up until 2025, we need to be focused on not being career sad. We don't need to be stressed. We don't need to be anxious, and we don't need to be depressed. Because right now, we need to be focusing on leveling up so we can get the job that we deserve. And it's going to take for us to really shift our mindset. So shift your mindset from being an employee to being a brand, and you will have an amazing, unstoppable career within the ServiceNow ecosystem if you shift your mindset from being an employee to being a brand. And you can only do that by building in public. You cannot be, building alone, studying alone, not posting your portfolio. So I just think those are some of the things that we can do collectively as a whole to be successful. So thank you so much, Jason, for inviting us this afternoon. I had a blast.
Yeah, this was super fun. And you guys you're just so inspiring. And everything you said, again, I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time clipping this up. But I feel like all three of you just built highlight reels for content for the three of you. So this is great. I will be sure to make sure that everybody gets it. And again, I want to make sure everybody in the chat connects with all three of these wonderful women. Um, any links, any socials, either any of you want to drop into the chat for anybody to connect. I did put your Twitters, since we do call it that. It's always going to be Twitter. Don't worry about calling it the other thing because it's not real. Outside of that, I was looking for this quote because Kanika, you said something about success and failure, and I heard this really wonderful quote about how you shouldn't fear failure because it lives next to success. Like, powering through failure is what gets you to that next step. And I had written it on a tweet somewhere because somebody was talking about failure and I can't find it. It was great. But anyway, it's so inspiring. Thank you, all three of you again. Everybody get connected down in the chat. Let's build this community out around ServiceNow. And that's it. Just remember, it's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. We will see you all soon.